I recently wrote a book titled Whole Brain Living. And I care about this material because as a stroke survivor, I lost literally half of my brain. I lost my left hemisphere. How many of you are stroke survivors? Okay. So every stroke, of course, is a different experience. And different parts of our brain are have the trauma, and then we have to be able to figure out, okay, well, what can we not do? But I always also like to focus on what can I now do better because I've had a stroke, as opposed to what have I lost. So I always look and I always ask people, what have you gained because you had this stroke experience? And for me personally, I lost my left hemisphere, so I lost my language. I couldn't communicate with words anymore. I lost a group of cells that define the boundaries of where I begin and where I end as an individual. As an individual, I lost the group of cells that defined me as Jill Bolte Taylor. So I lost my ego center. And I also lost all of my painful emotions from my past. And that was kind of the perk of, if I'm going to lose all this other stuff, what do I get? And the other thing that I really gained was the ability to experience communication with other people without always just being obsessed with what are they saying. And so I observed more facial language, intonation of voice, body language, and overall context of communication, because that's what's going on in that right hemisphere. And the other thing that I also gained is the ability to realize that I am atoms and molecules in space, this beautiful molecular structure that makes up my body is this dense mass that I will define as myself using my left hemisphere. And yet, in the absence of that left hemisphere, I felt that I was enormous and expansive and open and connected to all that is and all other people. So I became more of an active member of humanity and less of a member of me, the individual. So our two hemispheres have these completely different ways of experiencing our experience in the world. So I work from this little model, and the model is positioned so that this would be the front of the brain, and this is the back of the brain, and it would be positioned in my head like so. And the two hemispheres, then, the left hemisphere is what I lost. And what I gained was this experience of the right here, right now experience. And part of that is going to be an amygdala and a hippocampus for anatomical, as well as the anterior cingulate gyrus. So I gained an emotional experience of the present moment, which is very experiential. And I gained thinking tissue in the present moment that connected me to all that is, because we are connected to all that is right there through the anatomy of our right here, right now, right hemisphere. The left hemisphere has also an amygdala and a hippocampus down here, and then that anterior cingulate gyrus and part of the prefrontal cortex. So that's going to be emotion of my past and of my future. And then I'm going to have that left thinking tissue, which is of the past and of the future. And that's going to be information based. And there's a small group of cells right back in here that defines the boundaries of where I begin and where I end. So how is it that I know that this is my face, but that these glasses are not a part of me, but even though I wear them on my face most of the day? So it's because we have this tiny little group of cells. So on the morning of my stroke, when I wiped out the left hemisphere, I wiped out that left thinking tissue that is my rational brain as it relates to the external world. It has language, it creates language, it understands language, it has numbers, it has my relationships with the past and my projection into the future. And this is all about details, details, and more details about all those details. So as I look at my whole brain, when I lost that left hemisphere and I came into the experience of the present moment, to me, it felt like a pure euphoria and bliss. I was just happy. And I was vast and open and expansive and big as the universe and just filled with this sense of euphoria. And all these people wrote to me and said, after I had recovered, wrote to me and said, well, how do I find my way into that blissful euphoria? Because I want to live that too. And it took me a few years to figure out that eventually I realized that most people know we have an amygdala and that we have a hippocampus, but they don't realize that we have two, one in each hemisphere. And what that means is that people don't generally understand that we have two emotional systems as well as two thinking modules of cells. And so that's when I realized about how to communicate to you. How do you find your own peace? How do you think about your brain? And how might you get to know the different characters and profiles inside of your own brain so that you can call on any of those characters in an instant so that you have the power to choose moment by moment who and how you want to be in the world. So as I think about whole brain living, because we have a whole brain, let's use it. It is a myth that we only use 10% of our brain. That's simply not true. Neurons, the primary cell of the nervous system, are little living organisms, and they are like people. They thrive when they connect with other neurons. So if a neuron gets wiped out of a network, then it'll curl up in a little ball. And if it doesn't get reconnected in two, then it may stay forever, which is very rare, or it will actually die. So you can guarantee that if it's alive and it's in your head, you're using it. So what are you using it for? As we then think about this brain, I'm going to divide these four modules of cells: the left thinking as character one, the left emotion as character two, the right emotion as character three, and the right thinking as character four. So anatomically, we all have each of these four characters. And if you are a philosopher or theosopher, then if you study Carl Jung et al. In the four archetypes, these four characters actually lay perfectly on top of Carl Jung's four archetypes. But in Carl Jung's language, only character one is conscious. Character two, left emotion, is unconscious. Character three, right emotion, unconscious. And character four, right thinking, unconscious. But it doesn't have to be that way. You actually have the ability to know who are you when you are exhibiting each of these four characters. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through them quickly right now, and then we will open the conversation up for Q&A. A little bit of Q&A is the structure. And then you have pens and paper, and I'm going to take you through each of these four characters so that by the time you walk out of here, you have an understanding about who are the four characters inside of yourself. I encourage you to give each one of them names and then start paying attention to yourself. And you'll probably find that you exhibit character one easily, two easily, three probably, and four, well, when do you find your peaceful euphoria? And if you don't hook into that part of yourself very often, what skills can you engage in order to embody that part of yourself by choice more often? And then we'll also talk about the brain huddle, which is how these four characters communicate with one another at any moment in time so that you are living a conscious life based on the opinion and what's going on in each of these four characters, and they're in communication instead of conflict. So if you ever experience any kind of emotional conflict inside of yourself or any thought emotional conflict, this is going to help clarify for you what's actually going on inside of your brain and what can you do about it. So character one is left thinking, and the left thinking part of our brain has language. And as part of language, has me saying, I am an individual. So the left thinking is my rational left brain that interacts with the external world, and it's all about me and my ego. So all of the information coming in through my sensory systems goes through this filter in the left hemisphere, and it says, I am an individual. It has language, and so I can become an expert in my field because I know the language of my area of specialty, and I have the ability to speak the language of my specialty. And in our society, that's how we gain power in the world. So our power is based on our language and our ability to actually get our language out so that we can share that with other people. In addition to that, then I have that definition of myself as an individual. The left is everything I think about my past, and everything that I can project into the future. So this is the part of my brain that can look at my shoes and say, yes, I chose these specific shoes a few hours ago, and this is why. And I can project into the future. Well, after this brain bar, where are we going for dinner? And we can project that into the future because of these cells in our brain. Wipe out those cells and you simply don't have those skill sets. You're still you still have the consciousness that you're you, but your skill sets have shifted. So that's character one. Raise your hand if you recognize your character one. This is a part of you that creates order in the world. It likes to control people, places, and things. And it likes to define what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. It cares about how I present myself. It cares about how things look, and it can have a preconceived notion of how it wants things to be. And it then is punctual, and it gets us here on time. So that's our character one. Character two is our emotions from the past. So any pain from your past is located in that little character two. And so if you experienced any kind of upset or even happiness or pride or anything at all from your past experience, then it is your little character two that does that. This is the part of ourselves that can blame others if we're not happy. It can go on the attack and verbally be abusive. It can be abusive not just to other people, but it can be abusive to ourselves, where it may say to me, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of being loved, or I'm not good enough in order to get that person, or to do this or to do that, or whatever. So little character two is the pain of our past. Character three is the experience of the present moment. It is our emotional tissue of the present, right here, right now. So this is the part that if you can detect how much humidity is there in the air where you are, it's an experience. What does that feel like? What does it feel like to have your clothing on your body? What does it feel like to have the shoes squeezing your feet? What is the temperature in the air? How does it feel in this moment to be you? Are you excited? Are you not excited? Are you interested in an adrenaline rush? What sounds good? So this is the part of our brain that is experiential and is very playful. And because the left brain is what defines the boundaries of me and what is right and what is wrong and what is good and what is bad, this part of us just wants to have the experience. So it might want to paint. And it's the left brain that's going to say, okay, well, Jill, if you're going to paint trees, you have to make the leaves green, because in reality, leaves are green. And this part of your brain might say, well, I don't want to make green leaves. I want to make rainbow colored leaves. Why not? And so it's going to be playful and innovative. It's going to think out of the box, and it likes to do it with other people, because it's the left brain that defines that boundary of me, the individual, while the right brain is us as a collective whole. So if it wants to go jump in the lake and go play, it wants to take you along with it so that we can laugh and giggle and be in the present together and have a meaningful interconnection. So that's character 3. And then character 4 is our present moment thinking. And it's a present moment experience of intense gratitude that we exist at all. So the left brain defines me, the individual, but the right brain recognizes I am an organic being. I am a life force power made up of these amazing cells. I have the capacity to speak. I have eyes that allow me to see. I have legs that allow me to move around in space. I have digits that allow me to manipulate the space around me. And it does it without judgment, other than an incredible, deep, intense sense of gratitude and love. And I truly believe that our number one job as human beings is to love one another. And it is through the consciousness of that character 4 that that's how we do that. And then once we better understand and know our own 4 characters and we get to know them, then we have what we call a brain huddle. And at any moment in time, any of these 4 characters can call, in this instant, let's have a huddle. These 4 characters are my brain team, and any team can come together in a collective huddle. And in this instant, I can BRAIN, brain huddle, following that acronym. B stands for breath. Breath is the first thing we do when we're born. It's the last thing we do when we pass, and it runs on this track. And when I bring my mind into the present moment and I think about my breath, I can change the amplitude by changing the depth of my inhalation and the depth of my exhalation, or I can increase the frequency, but as I can only attend to my breath in the present moment. So brain, BRAIN, B, bring your attention to the present moment of your breath. R, recognize when you called that brain huddle, which of these 4 characters actually called the brain huddle, because each of them has the capacity at any moment in time to call a huddle. So B, breath, bring your mind to the present moment. R, recognize which of the 4 characters called the brain huddle. A, appreciate the fact that no matter which of those characters called the brain huddle, especially if it's that little character 2 that is really very unhappy, it's frustrated, it's exasperated, it's raging, it's hooked in its anger, it's attacking me, self, or another. That character is so powerful that it's just the energy inside of all these cells of this beautiful brain. All the energy has gone to that character, and that's why when we become angry or become impassioned, it's so forceful. So A, appreciate the fact that we have 4 characters, even when we're being swept away by that little hostility of that character 2. So B, breath. R, recognize who called the brain huddle. A, appreciate that we have all 4. Once we recognize that, inquire. They're all here. Which one do we want to be next? Which of these 4 characters do we collectively, as a democracy inside of our head, who gets voted to come out next? And then N is for navigate moment by moment by moment, because life is a moment by moment experience. And we do have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be in the world. And that power is designed based on these 4 characters. So once you learn who your 4 characters are, then you master a battle, then you have that power to live a completely conscious life. And the beauty of knowing who your 4 characters is that little character 4 of your own that is connected to love, that is as big as the universe, that is always there for you, has the power to self-soothe your own unhappy little character 2. And from the moment we think a thought to the time we stimulate an emotional circuit, and then we run a physiological response that flushes through our body and floods out of us, takes less than 90 seconds. So we have the power to use our brain huddle during that moment, during that 90 seconds, to observe what is going on inside of my brain at any moment. And in a brain huddle, who do I want to advance? Which of the four characters in the huddle do they nominate in order to go navigate the next way of being? So that's it for me. You know, we have the power to choose who and how we want to be in the world, and we don't have to live with 3/4 of our brain unconscious.
The Zoom audience can participate, but this is for the in-person, uh, uh, here at the event. And so I hope you all have your pen and paper. No, you don't have pens. You have pencils and paper, and so get them out. And then I encourage you, everyone at the Zoom audience, to to get out a pencil and paper, or notepad, or a pen, and follow along with us. Okay, this is a special exercise by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor.
So at the top of your page, put C1 for character one. And then I want you to write down these words: ego, ego, language, control, right, wrong, good, bad, punctual, details, boss, work, to-do list, busy. Okay, that is your character one. Do you know that part of yourself? Unfortunately. Give that part of yourself, if you can, a name. I call mine Helen. It's short for Hell on Wheels. She gets it done. But give that part of your name, yourself, a name, and you can change your names as you go along. It doesn't matter. But this is an identity inside of yourself, and it's a perfectionist, and it likes things its way. And so I want you then to write down underneath those things, where does this part of you tend to come out? For me, it's in the office, it's on Zoom calls, it's on telephone calls for business. It goes to the office. And then also, if you do recognize this part of yourself, then who likes this part of you? Who likes to hang out with this part of you? Parents? Best friend? Business colleagues? And then ask yourself, who does not get along with this part of yourself? When you're moving into your business, busy, who runs from the room? Your spouse? Your best friend? Your children? Your parents? Who does not get along with this part of yourself? Primarily because you're competing for being the boss, or they don't want anything to do with you being the boss. Okay? That's your character one. Character two. So, bottom of the sheet or wherever, just delineate a different section. Now, for those of you, if you look at your sheet of paper and it's really neat and all lined up, that was your character one. And if you just kind of wrote a bunch of words on there and it's all just kind of slopped on there together, that's not a real strong character one. Okay. Character two. This is the part of yourself. So let's write down high expectations, perfectionist, likes to blame others, worries, not very happy, misery loves miserable company, does not feel worthy, does not feel like they are enough, likes to push away and say no, and is, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at 9. Now, how many of you, because I used 10 for character 1 and I used only 9 for character 2, doesn't feel balanced? That's your character 1. Character 1 likes everything to be in their nice, neat little packages. So what do you mean you're not going to give me 10? I don't feel satisfied. So character little 2 feels frustrated. Now, I encourage you to give this part of yourself a name. I call mine Abby. Abby is it's short for abandoned, abandonment. What is my greatest fear, or one of my greatest fears? It's feeling abandoned. This is my little ego self that is not secure and not happy and doesn't feel safe. This is the part of me that if it gets triggered, I get loud. So what happens to your little character 2? When your little character 2 gets triggered, this is your fight or flight circuitry. Do you fight and come out loud? Do you run the other direction and abandon others because you feel abandoned? Do you go numb and play dead? We all have this little part of ourselves. And getting to know this little part of yourself and realizing that this is circuitry and this is established based on when you were a tiny little child, this part of our brain never matures. And that's why at whatever age you are, you can throw a temper tantrum just like you did when you were a 2-year-old. So ask yourself, when this part of you comes out, who do you go to soothe you? Who do you go to when you're in that kind of pain? Is it your mother? Is it a partner? Is it a best friend? Is it you go for a run? You go to nature? You go to God? You go to prayer? Who does this part of you, who comes in and soothes this part of you? Or how do you soothe yourself? What do you do? So that's your little character 2. Okay. Little character 3. Little character 3 is the emotional tissue of the present moment. It's, write this down, experiential. It's experiential. It is excitable. It is creative. It is innovative. It is playful. It is joyful. It is adventurous. It loves to explore. It is communal, which means it likes to go and be with others at the same time. And it is kind. This is your character 3. When does this part of you come out? Who brings out this part of you? What do you like to do as your character 3? Do you like to go bowling? Do you like to paint? Do you like to talk to your best pal on the phone and laugh a lot? What do you like to do when you're being this part of yourself? And then ask yourself, who does not like this part of you? Who thinks that your playful, joyful self is a waste of your time? Maybe nobody. Maybe your father. Maybe your spouse. Who does not like your character 3? So then let's move on to your character 4. Character 4 is, for many people, the hardest part of ourselves to identify with. This is the part of us that likes to experience and repeat affirmations. This is the part that enjoys meditation. This part of us is very mindful that we have the ability to choose deep inner peace. It is very peaceful inside. It expresses itself as gratitude. I love Kyle. Every time I'm with Kyle, I make sure Kyle knows. I look him in the eyes. I touch him on his shoulders. I hold him close to me and I say, Kyle, I love you. I am so grateful that you are in my life. It is important to your character 4 that the people you love know you love them. Where are you when this part of you comes out? Do you walk in nature to feel this part of you? Do you love to swim? And every time you're in the water, you are so filled with gratitude that, oh my gosh, I'm in the water. I get to feel what it feels like to swim and be in my body in the water. Where are you when this happens to you. When you wake up first thing in the morning, this is a great time to say, oh my gosh, whatever that higher being is that you believe in, call it God, call it Allah, call it the infinite being, call it whatever you want to call it. But it is that cosmic consciousness that you woke up today. Oh my gosh, I woke up today. And you woke up today because there's a tiny little group of cells right in here in this pons that its job is to wake you up, and it did its job. And so I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do is I say, oh my gosh, little cells that woke me up, thank you for doing your job. You woke me up. So I get another moment of being a conscious human being. Where do you feel who brings out this part of you? It might be a minister. It might be when you go to temple. It might be when you walk in nature. It might be when you hear a sounding bowl. And you let that vibration go through you. When do you do that? Might be in the bathtub with bubbles. Character 3 who wants the bubbles, by the way. How do you soothe and nurture this part of yourself? I'm going to encourage each of you to give each of these 4 parts of yourself names, because these are individual identities that you can learn to turn on in an instant. You have the power to get to know and nurture each of these characters. And once you identify them and you get to know them, and then you call the brain huddle. The character 1 wants to come online and it wants to fix a problem. Character 2 comes on and it needs to be soothed and loved. It needs to know that it has the rest of the team right there available. I'm never alone. I'm never alone because I have a character 3 and a character 4, which are connected to the cosmic consciousness. I am as big as the universe. And I have this magnificent left hemisphere so that I can interact with the external world in an effective way as an individual. But it doesn't mean I'm alone, because I am not alone. Character 3 wants to have fun and be connected to others, and character 4 knows we are as big as the universe, and we are so grateful for the time we have in this physical form because we're living beings. And right now we have these cells that allow us to have the existence, and it's about what I have. And I am grateful for what I have, not for what I don't have. Because what I don't have, I can adapt to not having that if I have gratitude in my heart for what I do have. And I make that choice. I make the choice as to which of these do I focus on, what, and what are the messages I'm giving to myself. And I always have that ability to choose. And that's the magnificence of what you are, my friends, as living beings. And I truly believe our number one job is to love one another. And we only love one another when we can love ourselves. So let's be grateful for what we have and figure out how do we use what we have and to expand more of the abilities of what's going on in that beautiful brain.
So Jill, do you mind if we ask you,
Good.
some clarifying questions, because this is a lot of information, and I know that this has sparked the minds of these people here tonight. And so,
Yes.
yeah, before you go, I just want to know, like, what's there for you.
Yeah, I've definitely realized there's some like parts of me that I need to work on for sure. And there really is like an emotional component to things that happen in the brain. I think that there's a lot of focus on the physical and medicalized aspects of it and really getting into the nuanced psychology of having these experiences in our brain are so important. We kind of forget these pieces of ourselves, and I think really anybody can kind of neglect these pieces of ourselves. And it's really great to kind of break it down in these characters and give them names is kind of like a really compassionate way to approach it, rather than labeling them in a sort of discompassionate way, medicalizing them or whatever.
I think for me, the thing that's coming up is appreciating how much I do to stifle character 4, and I'm also becoming aware of how easy it is to just let it come forth. Like when I deal with difficult situations and I'm in the moment and I feel frazzled, it's hard to process. When I give myself the space that I need, it doesn't take long for the insights to just pour forth.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Tanya.
I think I realized that one thing you asked earlier, like to focus on what the stroke, what did you gain? And I think for me, character 4 being having more of a voice and really understanding the need to find that mindfulness, to meditate, to be expressing gratitude and understanding who's important, because you realize anything can happen tomorrow, so really staying present in that. So kind of understanding that maybe at a really like low level, but now having all of these terms around it, and kind of thinking about where it happens so that you can kind of even visualize that place to bring that character forward maybe a little bit more, and who's important. So thank you so much for this.
Okay, a couple more.
So something I was thinking about was, I believe, for character 2, you were talking about how people deal with or cope or kind of deal with when they're upset, and you were saying how it's a reaction that hasn't really changed from like your childhood. Like you could throw a tantrum at any time, and the one that the coping example you brought up that resonated with me is like going numb, like being really quiet and just dealing with it in that way, and which is something I do. And I try and think about where and when that started, because I don't think it was something that I did as a child that I really remember. It makes me wonder if there was like a childhood thing when that like started that I just have like completely blocked out.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because when that character 2 comes online, and character 2 is like, I'm angry, I'm now I'm going to respond or react, and if I cut you off, then that essentially is an act of war against whomever it is that you just shut down, because life is about connection. And even when we're unhappy, it's fair to say, look, I'm unhappy, you're unhappy, we will never find a resolution with us both unhappy. I need a break, I need some time, you got to let me go, blow off my steam. That is the kind way and mature way of managing it. But if you just cut me off, then that's like an act of war against my soul. So I think it's very important that you do explore that and pay attention.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is kind of related to what Aaron was asking about, but I've always wondered, because of my condition, I can't remember anything really, before from before I was 13. Well, I have like faint memories and maybe some false memories, and um I also have a tendency to remember bad things more than positive occurrences, and I was just wondering if the things I can't remember, do you think they still affect me like in a subconscious way? Um or
I
if
think first of all, you clearly care that you don't remember those things. I lost 37 years of my life and I don't care at all.
okay.
I mean, why on earth would I bother wasting my time in the present moment worrying about what I did before? And so, first of all, if I were you, I'd stop caring. You know, you lost the first 13 years. Who gives a damn? Move on. Because there's so much exciting stuff going on in the present. Allow yourself to be in the present. That's the best advice that I can give you. Stop worrying about what you don't have or what you don't know or what you can't do. Try embracing what you can do and what you do have and finding joy and peace in that. And you can make those decisions. You can actually increase your capacity for joy and pleasure and peacefulness by choice. So I'd stop worrying about it.
Okay. Thanks. You're
Yeah.
better than my therapist.
Yeah. I'm just using my whip on you here. Yeah. I just don't even care about what happened before my stroke anymore. It's like it's done, it's gone. It's like I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. I lost everything. And had to really start from scratch, except for what was still in my right hemisphere. So my right hemisphere still had a three-dimensional understanding of the anatomy of the brain, the anatomy of the body. I lost all the language that goes to that education, but I went back to my books and I relearned everything that. But there's a whole lot from my past. Do I remember who I dated in high school? It's like, sorry guys, I have no clue, and I'm good with that. I don't care. You shouldn't care. I wouldn't worry. Does it influence you? Yes, it does. So, but you're not prisoner to it. You can actually create new circuitry now and certainly not worry about what happened in those first 13 years. Now that might, if there are any therapists in the room, they might be rolling their eyes going, oh my God. But it's like, for me, it's like my pain from the past belongs in the past. I want to live in the present and I want to truly live because I learned that life is precious. It is finite. It is precious. This having a voice and having language and having eyes and having legs and having a body and just having any of it is a privilege. So I'm just celebrate what you have and don't worry about the rest.
Before Jill leaves, we're all going to hang around, and everyone on the Zoom is willing to hang around, and because we're going to have a conversation about what is actually coming up. So for you and for others, and over some appetizers and some wine. Oh, the book.
I'm doing a commercial.
I'm not getting. Wait. I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I know. Sometimes I am a little slow, but worrying about that is just leaving me in the past.
And sometimes we want you to be a little slow, so it's good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So, to wrap things up, I was going to end it with, my usual closing, which is it's not about the past. It's not about the future. It's about the present and the future that we're living to. And I want to change that because after today, it's clearly, evident that we all should live moment by moment. And each of these characters and be in that moment because we should love each other. We should connect with each other. We should grow with each other. We wanted to share the love with our extended community all around the world. And so, one, our Zoom audience, thank you so much for sticking around, okay? And the in-person, for all you guys, I love you guys. Thank you so much. It's about the best ideas and most important conversations, which we will have later, that enrich the lives of others. And I've been saying that time and time again. And I think that it is evident today because we had a conversation with the queen of brains, the queen of strokes, but most importantly, our friend who we love. And we thank you, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, for taking the time and being present with us and sharing a little bit more that we can walk away with and use in our everyday lives. And
Thank you, Scott.
you
Thank
have to now here's the plug, okay? So raise the book again. So if you haven't bought this book, I'm going to hunt you down and read it, because it doesn't matter if you've had a stroke or a brain injury or whatever. It's literally the best book and really the only book I read this year. And but I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. It was so beautiful. It was so loving, and it was so to the truth. And so if you had something come into your life today, something about the conversation, something about the connection, you have to order this book, or I might just order it for you. and because it is phenomenal. So
Thank you, Kyle.
Jill, I don't want you to leave yet.
I want to go out with saying one more thing. Thank you for all of that. And I do know that he read it because we talked about it. So everyone who is a stroke survivor is a stroke survivor. We are not stroke victims. The stroke victims died that day. They died. We're the survivors. And I believe we can thrive. So I personally, I'm a stroke triumphant, and I want you to be a stroke triumphant too. And I think that attitude is everything. And focusing on the gifts that you have been given. You have been given a perspective that 99% of the population doesn't get. And you have an opportunity to learn about things in relationship to your body and healing in a way that all those other people who don't have strokes don't get to learn. And we are precious, and your life was spared that day. And I just want you to treasure that. You have been given a gift. just simply because you survived that stroke. And now what you choose to do with your life is up to you. And I'm just, again, I just believe it is our number one job to love one another. And Kyle, I am so grateful that you are doing what you're doing to bring people together who have had a like experience with something to do with the brain. And I just love that you're doing the brain bar. And I just think it's great. I just thank you.
It's all about creating new possibilities in our lives. Okay? Like I said, we our past is our past. It's gone. It's dead. What we can create together and by ourselves is what is where the story begins. And like I have had for years, I have one rule and one rule only that applies to this. There is no wrong and there is no right. It's only perspective. So, before Jill leaves, I want to have the most important thing that we have at the Brain Bar Salon, and that is our toast to the night. So, usually I would have given the toast, except we have someone special here tonight, and this guy is amazing, and he flew all the way from Colorado, and he is wearing the shirt that got me talking again, by the Spice Girls, and so Logan, even though you're not old enough to have a drink, I want you to stand with me and Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor virtually. And here, come up. Yeah. And give a toast. Logan suffered a brain aneurysm in AVM when he was 13. I was 11. He was really a hot shot baseball player, and so was I.
Was?
Yeah, and he just recently, if baseball fans out there, he pitched a perfect game, which is astronomically difficult in high school, and he did that after surviving a stroke. And then last week, he got to announce on ESPN the MLB drafts to the San Francisco Giants, because you don't like Colorado Rockies. You actually like the Giants. I would like for him to give the toast, because he is absolutely so special to me and everyone else, because of not only his story, but where he's come from to create a possibility in his life to reach out to others and enrich the lives of others. And that's what the Brain Bar is all about. So, can every single person... Oh, go ahead. Woo! So, without further ado, I want Logan, you might want to come a little bit closer. You don't have a mic, and he didn't even know that he was give the toast. So,
No, I didn't. You're
yeah.
right.
So do you want to say something and then give a toast?
Do I want to say something?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, we can just get to the point.
All right. Well, you do the honors.
All right. Well, I guess with our theme tonight, we're all about starting new beginnings, and we can be the best version of ourselves with taking control of our characters that we are now aware of, and we can be the best version of ourselves. So, with that, to a new beginning.
I couldn't even say it better than better myself. Like, especially after this glass of wine. So, Jill, thank you so much for enriching our lives and the magnificent character that you are. You will always be the queen of brains and the queen of strokes.
Mwah.
Yeah, and so much love to you as we continue the conversation for years to come.
Perfect.
So, thank you.
Mwah. Thank you, everybody.